How's it going, my evil residents? Today we're going to take a look at all of the chapters in the Evil Within 1 as part of my celebration of Evil Within's 10th anniversary. We're going to rank them worst to best, mostly subjectively. I will go into some stuff about the level design and story aspects of stuff that happens in the levels that kind of determine why I like or dislike a level. But just know that this is almost completely subjective. Something I like in a video game level might be something that you absolutely despise, something you hate. And yeah, I just wanted to say that right at the front. And also, I am sick, so if I sound a little silly, a little gross, if I sound a little bit like Nemesis from Resident Evil 3, that is why. Anyways, I won't waste any more of your time. Let's get right into the video. If you like it, feel free to drop a like, and stay tuned for more Evil Within and Resident Evil content. In last place, we have the 12th chapter, The Ride. The main reason I put this one last, honestly, is because 1, it's short, 2, half the chapter is just standing there shooting at a wall, basically, and then you have a small holdout section, and then you have this stupid, annoying, not scary, not fun section where you just have to go to an ambulance, pick up an item, run back, and then there's a jeep that you have to use to kill a bunch of enemies, and the jeep makes me motion sick because of how much it kicks. It's so annoying or boring, and I think it's easily the worst chapter in the game. Much like Resident Evil 5, if you're shooting zombies on the back of like a military jeep, it's probably just not a good chapter. Well, I don't know what the trend is with that. I think it's just abandoning the horror roots of what makes the games fun, but I'm just not into it. I don't think it's that fun, and it's not super satisfying in any sort of gameplay way. Sure, the spectacle of the boss is really cool, but that's all this pretty much has going for it. Also, the funny driving section at the end is funny. Like, it's so random, and I love it. In 14th place, we have Chapter 8. This chapter makes no sense to me because it's either a bookend or start to the chapters in between these two, and I don't know why they didn't just tack it on to those chapters, because this chapter is only about like 10 to 15 minutes long, and there's no boss fight, and that includes the cutscenes. The chapter is so freaking short, I don't know why it's its own chapter. You just run through a cave, solve one single easy puzzle, and then it's a big ass cutscene and a short running away segment. There's nothing here. There's nothing here for me to chew on. The one-hit kill enemies are kind of fun to engage with, but still it's like not that interesting. I just think this chapter is just a flop. I wouldn't say it's like bad. It's just so short and inconsequential that I don't find it super fun. Yeah, it has a really lore important cutscene, but this cutscene could have easily just been like slotted into any other part of when Sebastian like tumbles into the hospital hallway. I don't know why they specifically like put it here. They could have put this right before the Amalgam Alpha boss fight. It's just weird. The level feels like it only exists for a reason for there to be a cutscene there, but the cutscene could have been put anywhere else. Well, not anywhere else, like a couple more places around the middle area of this game, and it still would have been fine. So I don't understand why this chapter exists. It's really lame and just kind of disappointing, because I feel like that cave section with the one-hit enemies could have been a little bit longer and made a little bit cooler, or they could have just cut that and moved this chapter cutscene and like a couple parts of it, like the weird like babies, to just a different chapter and just have it be a small section of that chapter. I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't know why this chapter exists, but I can't necessarily say that it's like bad, like it has bad gameplay parts like the ride does. So it goes here in 14th place. In 13th place, we have Chapter 6, Losing Grip on Ourselves. This chapter feels like a marathon. It is not the longest chapter in the game, but it feels like the longest chapter in the game. I think it's tied for longest, but it feels so much longer than the other long level. I'll talk about it when we get to that one. But this one, it has really difficult sections. It has like technically 3 bosses. It has the Sadist 2 boss fight, it has Zen and Noon, and then it has the Sentinel boss fight, and it's so long. It like, you have that underground area, you have the area with all the sniping, you have the area where Joseph gets grabbed by the ghoulies. It's, oh my god, this chapter just feels like, it feels like a marathon. That's the only way I can really describe it. There's a lot of cool character building with Joseph and Sebastian here that I really, really like. I think it's stupid that he puts that much like, I need my glasses. It's about feeling human. Dude, just admit you can't fucking see without your glasses. No shame. No shame. Like, if you can't see without your glasses, you're gonna die. So, I mean, we do need them. You don't have to pull the, it makes me feel human thing. It's like, yeah, dude, we know. We know that. Just say you need your glasses. You don't gotta make excuses. But yeah, I mainly rank this chapter low because I feel like after Sebastian falls into like that like catacomb area where he meets back up, they really had to like break this. Just it feels so long. The main thing about this game that I don't like is just the pacing of the levels. It gets really like weird. It's really hard to tell like when you're almost finished with the level as someone that doesn't have like a billion hours to just sit and play a game because I have a job and laundry. It's just I really don't like that in games when I'm like, okay, when can I stop? And I know I can save pretty much whenever, but it's just something that bugs me about games when I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel per se. In 12th place, we have the first chapter, An Emergency Call. Honestly, this only ranks low because there's not much going on here. I really like this chapter, but I feel bad ranking it above other chapters that have more gameplay stuff going on. Like, you spawn in as Sebastian in his coat, you run like you have to take a shit, and then you get grabbed by the ghoulie, aka Ruvik, and then you run away from the chainsaw guy, and that's the chapter. Like, there's literally not much that goes on here. It's very much like the opening of the game. Yeah, it's cool, it's fun, it's exciting, but you don't really fight anything, you don't learn any of the gameplay mechanics yet. You just run away from stuff, which is fine, but I'm not someone that enjoys horror games where I just like run away from stuff. This is really a really good chapter on a first playthrough, but after that, every time you replay it, it just feels like a slog, and it's like, oh, I gotta replay the first chapter where I have nothing. So yeah, this chapter's not bad. It just goes in 12th place because all the other chapters have a lot more stuff going on. In 11th place, we have Chapter 2, Remnants. This chapter, I think, is like one of the best tutorials in a horror game like ever without just outright like telling you all the game mechanics right up front. I really like how this chapter is designed. You get some really simple gameplay setups, but they're simple. They aren't easy, if that makes sense. It does a good job of establishing that this game is going to be punishing, it's going to be hard, but we're not going to be unfair to you right off the bat at the beginning of the game, more so than we would be later, because this game is unfair to you throughout the whole game. That's part of the fun of the game, is that it bullies you, it makes fun of you, and it steals your Lunchables. That's the fun of the game. But they pull it back a little bit in Chapter 2 to really help you get a handle on the game mechanics, and especially right before Chapter 3, where it kind of tests that you've learned all those game mechanics while it gives you some extra weapons. We'll talk about them more when we talk about Chapter 3. But I just think this works really well as a teaching tool, and it really helps set the mystery of the world and what's going on. It's like, why is Sebastian here? Why does he grunt and yell like that? Why does he sound so weird? But also, you just this is where you kind of start liking Sebastian a little bit more, because this is where the feeling of, oh, I'm stuck here, it's just me and Sebastian, everyone's freaking gone from the prologue, it's just me, and I really like this chapter. I do think the weird like backflip he does off the bridge at the end is really funny though. It's so freaking funny. But yeah, chapter 2 goes 11. It's a great tutorial. It's really good. In 10th place, we have the second to last chapter of the game, Chapter 14, Ulterior Motives. Overall, I think this chapter just kinda feels like a filler chapter. It's like, oh, we haven't gotten Sebastian across the subway train bridge thing yet. We gotta do that, just make a 30-minute chapter. And honestly, if not for the boss fight at the end, probably my favorite boss fight, Quell is such a fun boss. Oh my goodness. If not for that, this level would probably honestly be bottom 3, but I had to bump it up for how good of a boss fight that is. Unfortunately though, the rest of the level is just either boring or frustratingly stupid, or you can crouch walk past the main combat section of the level and just skip it. So it's like, on replays, this area is just frustrating, so I'm going to skip it, but skipping it is also boring. So for the most part, this level is just, it's a good level, okay? It's a good level, but it's just not that interesting, and it's really annoying sometimes, especially that room with the Ruvik clones where he has like the spikes, and if you get stuck in the water, you're absolutely cooked. But again, this level is honestly saved by the incredible boss fight at the end, so here it stays at number 10. In 9th place, we have Chapter 10, The Craftsman's Tools. This chapter is another really long chapter, but honestly, if you know what you're doing, you can run through it pretty quick. But off rip, this is probably like one of the hardest chapters of the game. Just one, because of how long it is. Two, the traps in this level are like on a different level. They're such a pain. This level kind of reminds me of Saw, but not quite as fair as Saw, even though Saw is like not fair at all. I know this is kind of an unpopular opinion, but I kind of like this level for the Saw vibes that it gives me. That first room with the spinning blade in the middle, the first time I played through this game made me rage so incredibly hard that I had to like put the game down for a day. I got so mad. But on a replay, once I like understood the level a little bit more, I kind of knew what to expect with the traps and stuff like that, it was really fun. It was a lot more fun, and I don't know. I really like this chapter on a replay. I really like this chapter. However, if I was just ranking these chapters as if I had just played through the game for my first time, like I hadn't taken the time to replay the game, I definitely think I would have ranked this at like bottom 2, just because of how frustrating this level can be when you're not quite used to all the game mechanics. So I didn't want to rank it too high because I know people don't like this chapter, and it's very punishing and difficult, but the whole freaking game is okay. The whole game is. So I'm gonna put it at 10. I'm not saying it's like a fantastic chapter or anything, and the boss fight at the end, huge pain in the ass, that also made me rage. But yeah, it's certainly a chapter that is good. I don't think it's great necessarily. There's no like super huge standout moments aside from, you know, the boss fight at the end and that spinning saw blade room. The heated crushers are really funny. I wouldn't say they're necessarily scary. They're more so just like, why are these in here? Why are these here? But yeah, overall, I do like this chapter, but it's a slog and it feels a little bit too long. And then after a really long chapter, you also have a really hard boss fight. In 8th place, we have Chapter 3, Claws of the Horde. This is the level where the game really gets going, where things really ramp up and you get access to almost your full kit of items, which I think is a really interesting change from, I know a lot of people compare this game to Resident Evil 4, understandably. It's a big change from Resident Evil 4 because in that game, it's like, okay, you get a shotgun, defend against all these people. But in this game, they give you pretty much all of your main weapons off the bat. They give you the shotgun, they give you the crossbow. Like, that's honestly all you need for most of the game. You don't need many other things. So I think that's an interesting change. And at first, I saw this and I thought, okay, this game's gonna be a little easier. This game's no, no, you need that stuff. And then it immediately puts you to the test with those items to help you get used to them with the boss fight. And unlike Resident Evil, you have to kill him. You cannot just run away, cannot just loop him around. Nope, you gotta fight him. They test you in this game. This whole game overall is just testing either your patience or your actual skill of the game. And I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, but I really think that this chapter is what establishes that. And if you like this chapter, you'll like the rest of the game. If you don't like this chapter, this is not the game for you. And I really like that because it sets early on, after you've done the intro sequence of setting the mood for the game, this sets the gameplay of the game, if you're going to like it or not. And I like that. And it does so without also acting as a tutorial. Chapter 2 kind of did that, where it's like, okay, this is how you fight the general enemies. Chapter 3 is like, okay, here's your full kit. Now go fight the enemies. And I just think that's cool. I think it's good game design just to have a level where it's like, this is the main gameplay loop of the game. Get used to it or die. And I just like that. Yeah, it's asshole game design, but I like it. I think it's fun and it makes it really satisfying to get used to the game. So overall, I just like this chapter. The other chapters above this have a little more going on, but just as like an introductory chapter to tell if you like the game or not, I really like this chapter. So it goes to number 8. In 7th place, we have the 4th chapter of the game, The Patient, going right after the chapter that it is also before in the game. Honestly, I know this chapter is mostly a walking section with like one area of combat when you get dumped into the trash chute, but honestly, I love the story setup that is going on here. You're with the guy who inadvertently created the villain. It's not totally clear that that's the case, and it sets up what he still acts in character with Leslie, but he's very clearly, or he's not very clearly the one that like absolutely decimated Leslie's consciousness. And I just think it's really good storytelling here, especially on a replay where you know where all the pieces are for the story, and like why Ruvik hates the doctor, and then how Leslie was used as an experiment for the machine that you're in. It's just really good, especially on a repeat, seeing like where the characters are, seeing why they do what they do. Like the doctor guy, I can never remember his freaking name. Doctor guy, he ultimately just wanted to help people, and he wanted to help Ruvik by getting his information published. Ruvik did not like that, and you can tell all of that stuff with future context replaying this chapter. But on an intro, you think, okay, this doctor guy's not too bad. Leslie seems a little weird, but he seems fine. Ruvik is bad. But once you kind of peel back the layers of it on a repeat, both people you're with are bad. Leslie, I'm not totally sure. I think Leslie is like a neutral player here and is just kind of being used by both of them. But I just think it's really interesting character dynamics are going on here, and I really like it. The story is very confusing. Bear with me. It's hard to explain stuff for the story of this game. And then the trash shoot section is really fun, because on a first playthrough, it's pretty hard. And then on a second playthrough, you can just, you know where the enemies spawn from, so you can just abuse the explosive bolts, and it's hilarious. So I just think that's fun. And then you get the Laura chase scene, which I love that chase scene. It's so cool, especially at the start of it, where you've never seen an enemy like this. And it just comes out of the ground when you go to loot a locker for some green gel. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. One of the greatest jump scares in gaming, honestly. If not, one of the greatest jump scares in this game, if not just all of gaming, honestly. It's such a good, like, what the hell? But yeah, I really like this chapter. Gameplay-wise, it's not as good as Chapter 3, but as far as, like, story stuff goes, it's just so cool on a repeat playthrough, and it's very intriguing on a first playthrough, and I really, really like that. So here it goes at number 7. In 6th place, we have Chapter 9, just out of the top 5. I almost put this in the top 5, but I just couldn't quite bring myself to do it. Chapter 9 is really good. It is the most directly reminiscent of Resident Evil. I think this chapter is really where this game wears its intentions on its sleeve. Its cruelest intentions, if you will. Haha, funny title reference. I like it. But at the same time, I kind of wish this chapter wasn't in the game. I get why it is. It needs to be there for story. This is where Ruvik grew up. You're in his mind. This is where most of what happened to him took place. You gotta go here to understand why Ruvik's doing what he's doing. Because why he's doing what he's doing happened here. But I think the game, I knocked it out of the top 5 because this is where the game feels the least like the Evil Within and really just kind of pulls on the Resident Evil roots and really tries to grab the Resident Evil people. And I know that is the overall point of the game, to be a Resident Evil competitor, but I think this goes a little bit too far into mimicry instead of carving its own path like the rest of the game has been doing. It has been doing a wonderful job at that, and I think this chapter is just a little bit too derivative, and I don't like the vibe of it. It's cool at first, and then you realize, oh yeah, they're straight up just like wannabe Resident Evil right now, which I guess is fine. A lot of games do, but just knowing that the director of this game is the same as a director of a few Resident Evil games, it feels a little weird. It just feels weird. I'm not saying it's like bad. You can have your own opinion on it, but I like when this game is being its own thing more than I like when this game is copying Resident Evil. So I'm going to put it at number 6 because all the chapters above this one just really cement the game's identity as its own. This one does not. It very much feels very derivative. So here it goes at number 6. Also, the Red Mist barn fight is annoying as hell. In 5th place, we have Chapter 5, Inner Recesses. No, I did not plan that. I'm just a little stupid. This chapter here has got a little bit of everything, and it's the main reason why I really, really like it. It packs in everything about the game without feeling bloated and without feeling too long, but also it's one of the longest chapters of the game, and I really like that. It gets you a really good horror section at the beginning with the invisible enemies that, once you understand how they work and stuff on a repeat playthrough, isn't tedious because you could just sprint through the room like a god. And I really like that design philosophy for scary sections of like like, yeah, on your first playthrough it's scary, but they know you're not gonna be scared of it when you replay it, so you just sprint through it. I love that type of game design. I think it's incredibly smart because it's not tedious on a repeat playthrough, but it's still satisfying from a gameplay perspective because you gotta dodge the enemies still. Like, you gotta remember where they are. I love that. Then you get the holdout section where you could just abuse the fact that oh my god. Where you can just abuse the fact that your partner is basically immortal, and if he takes too much damage, you just drop a blinding bolt, revive him, let him keep fighting all the enemies. You can do it like that. And it's really freaking funny. And obviously you can just help him fight the enemies like a good partner. But sometimes I just want to be an asshole. And I just like watching him fight all the enemies. Or you can train him around like COD Zombies if you want. I like how many different ways you could play that section. I think it's well designed and it's fun and it doesn't feel too long while also not feeling like, oh, that's it, it's over. It's perfect, like, middle length of a holdout section, and then you have the brief, very, very simple puzzle at the end to end the holdout section. And I just really like it, and it's timed. It's not like a tight timer, but if you're not taking care of the enemies or, like, keeping on your toes about stuff, can trip you up with that timer. And then after that, you get one of the best boss fights in gaming with the Laura boss fight, and I'm aware that I say Laura wrong. I just have Tomb Raider brain rot, so pardon my Tomb Raider brain rot. This boss fight's awesome. Talked about it in my bosses ranked video a lot more. If you want to hear my thoughts on it more specifically, go watch my bosses ranked video. It was the video before this one, so not the previous video, but the one before that. Go check it out. It's a good video. And yeah, this chapter is just freaking awesome. It gets you a sample of everything this game has to offer, and they're good samples. They're just really good samples. In fourth place, we have Chapter 11, Reunion. We meet back up with Joseph and Kidman, and stuff goes slightly wrong at every single chance, because of course it does. This is Evil Within. The main thing I like about this chapter is just seeing the destroyed city. This is not something you see super often in like a survival horror game, just like an absolutely dilapidated city like this, and I absolutely love it. I've been on the firm stance that a Resident Evil game in the destroyed ruins of Raccoon City with like weird mutated nemesis parasites having taken over the destroyed ruins of the city would go absolutely hard, and this just proves it. This proves how hard of a game that would be. That would be awesome. Capcom, if you're hiring, or you can just steal my idea actually, Capcom, I don't mind, that's fine. But anyway, as for this actual game, the part at the beginning where I think it's intended to be a stealth section, but it's just really freaking hard, and I always fail the stealth immediately with the crates, and you have to go and pick up the key in that one corner room. You'd see it when you first enter. It's right after the Magnum. It's like one of the first combat sections of the game. That part is really freaking hard, and this is the part of the game where the enemies with the guns start to absolutely piss me off. I hate the enemies with the guns in this game. I don't know if it's a skill issue or if they're genuinely just bullshit, but I hate them. They suck. Just know that when I'm ranking these chapters high, the later chapters, just know that I despise the gun enemies. They are absolutely the worst. The crossbow enemies aren't as bad. The regular gun enemies, they can get out of here. They can get out of here. I hate them. Overall, this chapter feels like you make a longer trek than you actually do. This chapter isn't super incredibly long. It's by far not the longest chapter, but it's also not like one of the medium length, like 30-minute ones. It comes in about 45 minutes if you're being a little speedy about things. The section where you have to wait for the door to open and close to kill like the waves of 2 enemies, that section when I first played this game absolutely pissed me off so bad. But on repeat playthrough, it's not that bad. I had a skill issue, but it's that part, and then you get a holdout section right after it, so if you used all your explosive bolts, you're screwed. The game is obviously going to be the hardest at this point, and if you're not used to the game mechanics, this is where you're really going to feel it in this chapter, because they really doubled down on throwing hard enemies at you and at surprising spots. So I like that about this chapter. Yeah, it frustrated me when I first played it, but on repeat playthroughs, I'm like, okay, no, it helped me get better at the game for the rest of the chapters that are harder. So I like this chapter for that, but even if it made me frustrated at first, but I understand now. I get it. It may be Stockholm Syndrome, but I hope not. I hope that this is just a good chapter and I'm not losing my mind. In third place, we have the last chapter of the game, and Evil Within. Did I rank this high for story reasons? Yes. Yes, I did. It's everything just comes together right here. You fight Ruvik, you get the really good twist at the end where Ruvik did actually escape in Leslie's body. That's insane. But also, is Sebastian actually out of the stem machine? I'm not 100% sure. I haven't played The Evil Within 2. I don't know if it says in there or not. I have a sneaking suspicion that he is. But I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments if I am wrong or if you think he is or isn't in the stem machine. I'm genuinely curious. If there's any lore heads out there about this game, please let me know. I genuinely want to know. The main thing I like about this game is the boss fight because it's ridiculous and over the top, but I like it. It's good. It's like it takes the Resident Evil ending boss philosophy of big giant monsters shooting an RPG at it, but it makes it actually engaging. Whereas with Resident Evil, by the end boss, I'm just like brain off, shoot it with RPG. Okay, done. But no, in this game, you gotta aim the RPG. I talked about this in my boss's ranked video already, but most of the tough part of this is the boss. You gotta aim the RPG. You gotta do the you gotta do the House of the Dead, shoot the arms off amalgam thing. I just think it's fun. It's not overly difficult, but it is more fun and engaging than what I'm used to with like Resident Evil final bosses with these types of games. I don't think it's quite as good as the final boss of something like Dead Space, but it's still really, really good. And then you got that tunnel section before that of trying to dodge the spotlights. Oh my goodness. I died so many times my first way through that because I didn't understand they had to flip the second switch. I thought you just had to flip one or the other. I'm such an idiot. I don't know why I make videos on survival horror games. I'm too stupid to do half the puzzles. But that chapter is really fun once you get used to it. And then you get that running section after where Sebastian just like walks in the mud while he's getting chased by like a death saw blade or something like that. And it's so good. It's so camp, but it's so good. I love that it leans into the camp a little bit because this is a campy game. Okay, this is a campy game. It's got a little bit hokey voice acting. I like it, but be honest with yourself, the voice acting is a little hokey. And I love it all the more for that. Like, yeah, this game is properly creepy and terrifying, but also it's a survival horror game with hokey voice acting. I love it so much. It's so good. Anyways, chapter 15 goes in 3rd place. In 2nd place, we have chapter 13, Casualties. I love sneaking around the apartment area in this level. Just this whole level is just, it's so tense because you don't know when you're going to fight the Keeper. You're never quite sure when you're going to fight him. You see him from the very start of the chapter and it's like, when am I going to fight him? When am I going to fight him? You're always ready. You always want to reserve your resources because you don't know when you're going to fight him. It's so good and it's so tense, especially this late in the game where the tension has dissipated a little bit as far as like danger goes because you've gotten more used to the game, you're more kitted out, and you just got the Magnum. You just got the freaking Magnum a couple chapters ago. You're like, I'm balling, I'm good. This one puts the tension back in because it's like, oh, the Keeper's back, and especially if you didn't kill him on the previous Keeper chapter, you're like, oh no. How do I kill him? What do I do? I love the tension in this level. It really just injects the game with a little extra oomph to keep you going for the rest of the game, and I really like this chapter. You don't have to stealth through all of it. You can just fight all the enemies, which also isn't super hard, but I just prefer sneaking around the apartment. I think the level design really just plays well with that type of style. It's really good, it's really fun, and then you get the Keeper boss fight at the end. While it isn't my favorite Keeper boss fight, it is still good, and it is a pain with all the freaking hanging bodies. And how could I forget the saw blade kitchen? It's a saw blade kitchen. How that alone puts it at number 2. That is just so cool, and it's also like not hard. You can just kind of walk past most of them, but it's terrifying when you aren't aware that the saw blades don't do that much damage unless you're playing Akumu. I'm assuming this room is absolutely AIDS, but yeah, chapter 13 it's just great. I know I'm probably overrating it a little bit. I at least think it earns like 5 or 6 minimum. I just personally really like this chapter for the tension, the boss fight, and the great use of the late game stealth mechanics. It just all works together so well. In 1st place. Yeah, I know. What can I say? I love the Keeper, okay? I'm a Keeper lover. He goes in the top. Keeper's awesome. So this chapter I really like because you get that really cool, really creepy crypt section with like, it's just fun, okay? I know I'm overrating this level. I'm 100% aware of that. I just really freaking like the crypt wandering like wandering around the freaking like tomb with all the weird gas. It's so creepy and mysterious, and like the different tablets. It's a different style from the rest of the game, and I just really like the mix up of, yeah, you can go either way. You can go either way you want. I just like that. I've always liked that in games where you can just like pick 2 directions to go, but the third objective is always the same. I don't know why. I just like that. And then you get the Keeper boss at the end, which is like one of the most terrifying bosses in a game. I think it's scarier than the Lara boss fight, honestly. I'm being completely honest. This level is a little bit carried by how good the Keeper boss fight is, and just the variety of, yeah, you can just stay there and just keep fighting the Keepers, or you can just run and just keep freezing him, or you can just run and forget that you have freezing bolts like I did my first playthrough. The crypt area before it is fun, and it's engaging without being overly annoying or difficult, which I think this game can kind of fall into sometimes, of where like, yeah, this is a punishing and hard game, but sometimes it's just stupid. You don't really have that in this chapter at all, and I really like that. It doesn't quite make for an easy breezy experience. It's not too easy, but it's fun and it's engaging and it's challenging, and I really like that. And I really think this chapter is where the game finds its difficulty balance of being slightly unfair, but not to the point to where it's frustrating and not fun. And I really like that balance. I really like the boss fight and the environment. So overall, this chapter is an easy number 1 for me. I love it. Sure, it's not super plot heavy or anything like that. It's got the Keeper. It's got the guy. It's got the guy on the picture. It's got the cool boss fight guy. I like the cool boss fight guy. It's the Keeper. How could you not like it? Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. If you liked it, drop a like. If you disliked it, feel free to dislike it, but let me know why in the comments. We have a Discord if you'd like to chat with me or other residents, and we do have channel memberships if you'd like to support me more directly than leaving a like or something like that. Obviously, no pressure, but they start at 99 cents. Shout out to my malevolent residents, Belladonna and King of Horror. And yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Stay evil, my residents.